Cypher is a brilliant system. It can be as light in narrative or as hard and crunchy as you want it to be, depending on how you build your campaign. That's part of the reason that I love it. But when it comes right down to it, 95% of the things a player does in the game is a task roll. Whether it's stabbing a goblin up the nostril with a dagger, convincing the local megacorp to give you a job, or piloting a starship through an intergalactic battle against anthropomorphic quokkas. How this works in Cypher is basically broken down into a few easy steps. The first step is the fact that you, the player, decide what you want to do. Using your head hole that is able to emit vibrational frequencies to the game master, you let said game master know that there's something you would like to do, pretty please. And although it's not clearly labeled in the rules, one thing I suggest in games with creative ways to roll is to also declare the goal or intent of your actions. The example I give is attacking somebody with your sword. In some RPGs, you attack, it hits, you do damage, same shit different round, Bob's your uncle and you move on. Cool story, bro. However, in a more narrative game, where something like the task roll is used for basically anything in the game, what outcome you hope to achieve is quite important. Are you stabbing at the goblin to cause damage? Are you stabbing at them to make a cut on their forehead and trying to blind them with the blood flowing into their eyes? Are you stabbing at the goblin's hands to make it more difficult for it to wield its itty bitty widow knife? Oh, he's so cute. Why are you even attacking him? How dare you? What is wrong with you? Sorry, let's get back to it. All of these goals have the same type of task roll, but with very different outcomes and possibly different modifiers as given by the GM. This is why I think, despite having no real mechanics, this step is one I consider the most important. When deciding when to roll a task, that's pretty easy. Is there a chance of failure, or at least something interesting happening if you fail? If the answer is no, then don't roll. It'd be better to just narrate it and move on. However, if there is a chance of failure, then the GM may ask for the task roll. This is the point when you get out your click-clack math rocks, specifically the one with the 20 different sides to it, and get ready to be disappointed once again as you roll a natural 1. If at any point in the future steps you manage to lower the difficulty low enough that there's no longer a chance of failure, then you don't need to roll. Pools are more than just giant vats of water, chemicals, and human urine. In the Cypher system, you have 3 pools: might, speed, and intellect. When you state you want to do something and a task roll is needed, the GM will determine which pool you're going to roll with. Might if it has something to do with your body, health, resistance, physical endurance, etc. Speed for balance, dexterity, movement, manual finesse. Intellect for anything to do with willpower, intelligence, knowledge, or being able to sit through Kyle's story for the 500th time despite knowing how the damn thing is going to end. Just get to the point, Kyle. This conversation is not a meandering labyrinth. Once the GM has determined the pool you're rolling with, they also determine the difficulty level you're rolling against as a number from 1 to 10. Some game masters are super open and nice and tell you what the difficulty number is. Frustrating people like me, however, rarely tell you what the actual number is, but instead give a vague sense of how difficult the challenge will be through a narrative description. Next, we modify the task. The player and the GM figure out if there's anything such as training, equipment, special abilities, assistance, environmental or situational modifiers, and so on. These can either ease the task by a number of steps, making it easier to achieve, or hinder the task by a certain number of steps, making it more difficult to achieve. Apply the modifiers to the difficulty the player is rolling against. Remember that if you have enough modifiers that the difficulty would be reduced to 0 or less, no roll is needed. Some things will simply ease or hinder the roll, but many things in the game apply assets, which also ease the roll, except that your total assets cannot ease the roll by more than 2. This is a great way to balance the game so you don't just have a billion assets to make every roll an insta-win. Now let's look at an example for modifiers. You want to rewire the control panel for the airlock, which is level 5. You have training in electronics, so that's going to ease the roll by 1. You have a set of extremely well-made specialized tools in the colors of Hello Kitty. This applies an asset, thus easing the roll by 1 more. Your friend is helping you, and they're specialized in electronics, which makes you wonder why they aren't making the roll, but whatever. In this case, the specialized character is granting you 2 assets. However, there's a limit to how many times assets can ease the roll. So in this case, it's more like applying one easement from the assets because you already have one from the Hello Kitty tools. The GM also determines, because the ship is tumbling around in free fall as it plummets to the planet below, that the roll will be hindered by 2 steps. Knowing this, the player decides, they're going to apply 1 level of effort because they really need this to work. This means the difficulty level they're trying to achieve is now 3. Before we actually do the task roll, we need to subtract any cost from that task from the pool we're rolling under. Initial costs can be assigned by the GM if the task is especially strenuous or taxing. Costs can also come from abilities, applying effort, and other sources. I know a few players get a little confused by how the description of edge is written in the book. In practice, just think of it as total of the costs up, lower the cost by your edge in that pool, then pay that cost from the same stat pool. Keep in mind, you do still have to have points in the pool you're paying from to do this. Knowing the final difficulty the player is now rolling against, the GM determines the actual target number they want to roll on by taking the modified difficulty level and multiplying it by 3. In the example where the modified task for opening the airlock is now a level 3, that means the player needs to roll a 9 or higher on 1d20. There are cases where modified task rolls can be higher than 20. If this is the case, the task is still impossible to achieve. More modifiers may be needed to even attempt it. That's it. That's the basics of a task roll in Cypher. Now, there are a few other bits like special stuff that happens when you roll certain numbers, but I want to keep these videos relatively short, so we'll do those in other videos. I did want to mention, there is sort of an alternate way to calculate these rolls. I actually flip things around. I have the modifiers adjust the difficulty the player's roll is succeeding against, rather than the difficulty the GM is setting. I do this for 2 reasons. Firstly, I don't tell my players the target numbers, so to keep things transparent on what level of awesome they're achieving, I throw the adjustments on their rolls so they can see the result. Secondly, I play almost exclusively on a virtual tabletop because I play with people all over the world, and the one I use, Foundry, does all the mathemagical stuff for me. The players just have to decide what modifiers they have and press the pretty button. Then our computer overlord tells us what difficulty was achieved, and we're good. When I play in person with just pen and paper though, I prefer the default method because it is easier to calculate in your head meat. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe. If you like what I do, consider tossing a couple of bucks for this Canuck for some brewskis at my Ko-fi link down below. As always, stay healthy, stay safe, and have a good one, eh?